the incentive to do something. And really to bring that public health frame to the issues of noise and pollution from these machines, and more broadly to our dependence on fossil fuel-based equipment to do lawn and garden tasks. So I started Quiet Communities in 2013 as a nonprofit organization. Our focus at that time was on outdoor power equipment, noise and pollution, and we now have 4 different programs around different sources of environmental noise, pollution, and policy, but I'm not going to go into that. It's just to mention. So at this point, we work with 25 legal and medical professionals, mainly that work pretty much on a volunteer basis. We started out raising awareness of this issue by going to schools, different towns, doing workshops, and actually demonstrations of alternative equipment, battery electric equipment as an alternative for commercial workers. Our partner in this is now the American Green Zone Alliance in California, and with them we have transitioned South Pasadena, California, Ojai, California, Lexington, Massachusetts, Mountain Brook, Alabama, and a number of other municipalities and campuses from gasoline to electric equipment. Some of them fully, some of them in a slower transition. But we really think for this problem, you know, regulatory approaches are great if they work. A lot of times they don't, but having and implementing solutions can also be a part of the approach here. That said, I'll jump to where we are right now. As you all have gathered, we have had a lot of people in the East and other parts of the country that are saying, we just have to do something now. You know, the whole pandemic situation is really bringing some of our issues to the fore. You're probably familiar with the Harvard Public School Health Group that recently reported that a 1 microgram increase in air pollution is linked to a 15% increase in risk of death from COVID. These machines, the leaf blowers, are producing tens of millions of micrograms of fine particulate pollution every hour. So it just, you know, and at ground level. So it's a crazy situation. We really think that we can use this to try and bring attention to this issue, and are having a Zoom meeting also tomorrow, and you're certainly all invited if Albert or Michael sends the contact information, and we'll be having people from other communities as well. So perhaps joining forces, building some resources that we can use to approach government officials, healthcare groups, physician groups, you know, influencers on this can really start to make a difference.
All right, that's great. Let me ask you a question. Jamie, about your upcoming call, would it be all right for me to share the Zoom link for that in the chat?
Yeah, that would actually be the most convenient.
Okay,
I'd appreciate
fantastic.
that.
Yeah, and I kind of spaced out.
I think actually, I'm sorry, Albert, what might be better is if I send the invitation out to your list, only because then we can see participant names on the Zoom conference.
You'll see participant names when they pop in, just like you do now. If you roll your mouse over
even if it's been forwarded. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. So Joy asks,
good. Well, thank you.
Joy asks a question: can we get the data information regarding the 1 micro of ? And the relationship to COVID-19, or did I completely misunderstand?
No, so I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this. One of the things that we've done, we've actually done some research in this area. We published that research in the peer-reviewed scientific literature and presented at conferences. So one thing with regard to that particular statistic is that we did an analysis of the National Emissions Inventory Database back in 2015 along with the EPA, presented that at a conference called the International Emissions Inventory Conference down in San Diego. There is a paper, it's on the EPA website, that totals emissions from equipment. We've taken some of that, have done some sub-analyses and presented that at scientific meetings, but haven't published a paper on it since that time. What we know from that analysis, even though it's not published, is the amount of material, all different kinds of pollution that come from these different tools, because those data are quite granular. And so that information hasn't been published, but so we can only source, it's unpublished, but from an analysis, and we use, validated equations from EPA to calculate that. I think we should publish it and then be able to cite it. The other thing, the other issue, just to mention it, is on the noise. We did a pilot study with Harvard School of Public Health back in 2016, it published in 2017, looking at what is it that makes the sound from these machines so intolerable. And we looked at how it travels over distance and the frequency spectrum, and found that there's a very strong low frequency component. Then last year, the prior year, working with a group from Washington, D.C., we did a head-to-head study looking at comparing sound and its characteristics from leading brands of gas leaf blowers and leading brands of battery electric blowers, both in the commercial grade equipment, and published that study. We had a engineering firm called ARUP. Their acoustic engineer came up and did the measurements. We designed the study together. That was published last year, so that's available, and basically showed exactly the same thing, that the sound from the gas equipment travels much further than the sound of the battery electric because of that strong low frequency component. And then in testimony we presented to the Washington, D.C. City Council, that testimony is available. We reported that if you took those findings and looked at a densely populated neighborhood like the one in Washington, D.C., you can calculate how many homes in a densely populated area would be affected by a harmful level of sound. So anyway, that's some of the work that we've done. And yes, I see there's a question. Can we list those references? Yes, I'm happy to share them.
Yes, I'm muted. Yeah, if you want to put those in the chat, that would be great. And we can also send them out via other ways as well.
Yeah, if I can send them out in other ways. We're putting together a resource piece that's going to have a lot of the citations in it as well. And we'll be sharing that with the group, whoever joins the call tomorrow. Okay,
fantastic. Perry has a question. And also introduce yourself, Perry.
Okay. Everybody. I'm Perry Hartman. I was invited to join by Albert. Thank you, Albert. And I'm in Seattle, and I am spearheading an organization not too different from QCPDX to address the leaf blower issues here, which are obviously pretty much the same as there. So my goal here is I'm putting together a website, and if any of you want to review it, I can post the link through Albert later. And I'd be delighted to get your feedback on it. Aside from that, my goal is to get a core group of people together and then start working on a plan. So I'm just basically at this point just want to get people together. I don't want to actually try to dictate what we should do, because I'm afraid that that will be less inclusive than actually getting people together. Anyway, enough on that. I have a question for Jamie, and that is regarding the particulate. I've seen I mean, it's really cool. Oh, the sound study that you just described, it just sounds awesome. But and I want to get that and cite that. But apart from that, the particulate, I've seen lots of studies, or not studies, but articles talking about the microparticles that get that throw up in the air. But I have not seen anything to show what percentage of particulate is thrown up by leaf blowers and other lawn equipment, but particularly leaf blowers, compared to overall particulate. Because, for example, the freeways with tire wear throw up an enormous amount of particulate. So does just the wind blowing on dusty streets. And how does leaf blowers compare to that? How significant are they?
Well, that's a good question. I'm just thinking, in the EPA study that we did, we looked at emissions as a percent of, I know, all non-road sources, the different kinds of pollution, which would be hydrocarbons, nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, particulates, including fine particulates. 90% or more of the particulate pollution put out by lawn and garden equipment is fine particulate pollution. And I think it's in the study in the form of graphs where you can see. I don't have it right in front of me and handy, but could certainly look that up for you. I think one of the important points about the pollution put out by these machines is that it should be considered close proximity pollution. It's emitted at ground level, close to airways. It's easily inhaled. It's in high concentration in a small area relative to traffic and other, power plants and so forth, and the pollution that comes from that. So that's one thing that needs to be considered in that context.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Thank you. That's good.
Thanks, Perry. Let's see. So if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand via the bottom area. That was just Jamie Banks of Quiet Communities. Thank you so much, Jamie. And also, people who are posting links in the chat area, feel free to give the links a little bit of explanation for why you're posting them. They look like great links. I'm looking forward to seeing them. I wanted to give Michael Hall a chance to say hello and introduce himself and say howdy. And Tom and Lisa, you have a question. We'll come to that next, if that's okay.
Thank you. I'd be glad to give a sort of a brief history of what we've done here in Portland and what the actions have been. If Lisa, do you want to step in with yours first? This might take a couple of minutes, and I don't want to. Go ahead, Lisa.
Sounds good.
I need to get there. I'm unmuted. So just quickly, because I have some background in air quality, just as Tom does. I'm not as interested in technical details, particularly now online. As a neighborhood resident, I've tried for years to talk to neighbors, to talk to leaf blowers. We've got a noise monitor, to do whatever to get them things to change. We have a strong neighborhood here. What I need, I love your website. You've got tons of technical details, lots of proof, if people are into science, that this is a problem. What I would love to have would be a sample 300-word letter to put in newsletters, neighborhood newsletters, something that's just discursive with a link to all these wonderful details, so that we then could follow up with a presentation at our board, try to get a neighborhood resolution. I would also love to see something like a garden stake that has a blue background with a couple white clouds on it, showing that people are on the program to not have to ban gas-powered things. Yes, and
that is brilliant.
And then we could even put stickers on them. You could give them a sticker if they're using a rake, a sticker, da-da-da-da-da. So those things would be very useful for me and in our neighborhood. The thing is, in Laurelhurst, people like their spiffy yards. So it has to be a gradual process. We can't ask them to, immediately quit raking and leave all the leaves out and all that. They're not going to do it. And moving at least to the electric equipment and then to hand equipment, that's something you can reward as a stage thing. But first, if they're on the program, something like that. So now I've said my piece, and I might just check out after we hear a little. If we could have a little discussion about actions.
That's a great idea that you have. We've been talking about yard signs, but I think your idea of something smaller that goes in a yard where people are taking an action to show their neighbors that they're making a movement in a particular direction is brilliant. And thank you for that. That was made having this call for me worth it, because that's like kind of where I get excited is what do local people do to make the change. And here in my neighborhood, I've been noticing for the last couple of years as we started this effort, quite a bit of change. Just the leave the leaves concept is really happening more. So thank you so much for that. And all right. And, before Michael, you go, did anyone have another question for Jamie? Because she gave us a lot to chew on. I don't want to waste that opportunity. So if you do, just raise your hand like this if you want to, and I'll unmute you. If not, then we'll go on to Michael. I don't see any hands. Okay, thank you, Jamie, so much for your work. And people do join her call tomorrow. If you get the opportunity, I have a feeling it'll have a different flavor. It'll probably be a more national experience. And yeah, this is good. Michael.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, everybody.
Great, Jamie. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, maybe on that sign we could have our motto, Make America Rake Again. I think that would be a great way to move forward with people smiling too. I got to keep a sense of humor about this whole thing. So I'm going to take about 3 to 5 minutes here, if that's okay with everybody, just to give you kind of a few of the talking points about what's been happening. I started this about 2.5 years ago when I got into an argument with the landscape contractor next door. Timothy, can you dial it back? He said, well, no, I can't, because you don't take good enough care of that side of your house. And I said, whoa. And subsequently I saw the neighbor had a rat problem and a dead rat on their property. He came and blew it onto my property. And I said, now this is war. I can't wrestle that thing away from you, but I'm gonna stop because of the noise and the windows rattling. It turned out that there was a lot more going on than the noise. There was the air pollution that people like Jamie are very, very clear about. There's the environmental issue about greenhouse gases and all fossil fuel. One of the data points I like to make is that in 2011, Edmunds Car Review did a comparison of carbon emission from a 2-cycle gas-powered leaf blower compared to an F-150 pickup truck. And the half hour of the leaf blower had the same hydrocarbon emission, which forms fog, which kills, is the same hydrocarbon emission as 3,887 miles on the Ford, the F-150 pickup truck, which is an incredible number. And we've heard numbers different than that, but that's kind of an example of the environmental issue that goes into this thing as well. So we've got noise pollution, we've got air pollution, we've got emissions, and then we have the climate issues, and that's what we've been talking about in Quiet Clean PDX for the last the group formed about 1.5 years ago now, and so we've been very active in media, in working with neighborhood associations, and with getting letters to the editor and commentaries in local newsletters and newspapers. The Oregonian had something. We have taken action first at the state, and we were encouraged by Representative Alyssa Kenny Geyer to drop a bill in the state legislature. And State Senator Michael Denbrough said, no, you should start local and then build up. And Alyssa would say, no, let's just go for this thing. So we got the House Bill 3350, which surprise to us, got a hearing in the Energy and Environment Committee. And the chair of that committee, Representative Ken Helm, subsequently told one of our members, Brian Stewart, he said, look, I thought this was just going to be a courtesy hearing. but you really proved to us that there is a problem and there is a solution to that problem. And so we are going to come back this next year, and we're working with legislators to come up with a different bill this year. But what it did was it gave us visibility and gave us the support of City Commissioner Nick Fish. And one of our members, Stan Penkin, was a friend with Nick. And through Nick's office and a wonderful staff member named Santa Lawrence, got us a hearing before the Portland City Council on December 4th. There was unanimous support for a resolution 1123, which mandated that all handheld leaf blowers that are gas driven would be eliminated from the city's bureaus by January 1st of 2021. A great victory for us, small but powerful. And then subsequently, very sadly, Nick Fish died 3 weeks later. And so now that resolution, and you can find it on our website, quietcleanpdx.org, that resolution has been passed on to Commissioner Chloe Udall. And we have reached out to Chloe to see about what the implementation is of not only the transition through procurement and through retiring the gas leaf blowers, but also a working group that would work in the direction of eliminating gas leaf blowers citywide, small C citywide. And so that is now stalled with Nick Fish's death and with the pandemic issues. It was moved to County Commissioner Vega Peterson's office, and we've been working with them. Things are kind of in a stall right now on the city and county combining of the work group, and we're hopeful that that can be moved forward as this current pandemic issue is managed and alleviated. So we're working on the city level, on the county level, and on the state level, and we have a lot of allies, like Quiet Communities is a huge ally, EXA is a huge ally. We have lots of people all over the country who are networking, and thank you, Jamie, for setting up the Zoom thing tomorrow. I think that's going to be a lovely way to go, another way to go national. We're going to need you all when it gets up into the legislative area again. And one of the things that I was trying to figure out, and then I'll wrap this and answer any questions, is that there's some pushback from some of our team members. We have, like Albert says, there's 8 or 9 of us that sit around the table every few weeks and talk about strategy. And some people are less about banning and more about voluntary cooperation with this one. That, you know, out of my cold dead hands, you're going to take my leaf blowers. And so we're working on procurement as well as on limitation, banning or limiting the use of. And so I don't know where that's all going to go, but we're going to reach out to the state legislators that we've been working with to get their best advice, and hopefully this summer craft a bill that would be introduced in the 2021 legislative session to see if we can get some statewide response. And it might be like the dirty diesel bill, which is just in those more metropolitan areas rather than the pushback from Eastern Oregon or Southern Oregon with the more rural places. So anyway, we have a good head of steam now. We feel like we got traction. The pandemic virus kind of stopped us in our tracks. And so we're gearing up again and trying to figure out. I have a letter out to Commissioner Udaley to ask her for a Zoom meeting with her and her staff so that we can find out how the city is implementing the resolution. And we have outreach to the county, and we have an ongoing conversation with the state. So good things are happening, maybe not at the pace we'd like them to happen. One of these things, it teaches me patience. I get impatient sometimes. Robert Heinlein has a wonderful line in Stranger in a Strange Land. He said, "Patience is a rock waiting for its first thought." And so I'm working on that mantra here and trying to keep things moving forward. And I'm totally grateful for all of your support, each and every one of you. And if you go to our website and look at the sponsors page, we've got a lot of major sponsors, both locally and nationally. So anyway, that's my summary for now.
Yeah, great. And just to piggyback on a little bit of what Michael said, I'd like to do a little bit of talking myself this morning, just to give you some ideas about some of my thinking about how to effectively make change in society and around this issue, but can be used for other issues as well. Michael just mentioned our website. I just posted a link to it. And also up there are, for you locals, if you're looking to change your landscaper, or if you know people in your neighborhood who you'd like to encourage, we have a list up there that is all people who have filled out a survey, landscaping companies who filled out a survey, and then we've taken the survey data and basically posted it, and it's landscapers who don't use gas-powered leaf blowers. And then there are also other columns like, yes, we don't use pesticides, we only use hand tools and that type of thing. So, you know, if you're looking to just affect change in your neighborhood, which is a great thing to do, as I've been working on this in my neighborhood for a couple of years, there are less leaf blowers. I wake up every day not hearing them. And it used to be every day that I would wake up hearing them in the morning and in the afternoon and in the night. And now when I hear one in the distance, I'm like, oh, yeah, there are still leaf blowers. There's still a problem. And I know that that's not true for every neighborhood, obviously. Does anyone have any questions for Michael? Michael is a font of information. If you do, raise your hand. Tamara, go ahead. Hold on, give me a sec.
I think I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I actually know my whole block.
You're cutting out.
And I've talked with a couple of them saying, hey, you know, doesn't this drive you crazy? And it's funny because even those that have a gardener that uses them, they don't like it when they hear the noise from other people. On the other hand, they say, well, my gardener uses it. So I'm just wondering, I even know the gardener. He does about 4 of them right here. How do you approach them? You know, I know you mentioned buying them electrically, but I just, if someone could kind of describe how you would approach a landscaper who's a nice guy even, who doesn't think this works for his business.
How do you approach neighbors?
I think she's asking, how do you approach a landscaper or a neighbor?
Yeah, either one.
On the topic. Yeah.
I think it's better, frankly, to approach the person who's hiring the contractor rather than the contractor themselves. There might be some pushback from the neighbors saying, what are you doing? You know, this is my business relationship with this person. Among the other things I do is I'm a neighborhood emergency team volunteer. And we've declared this to be a disaster, a slow moving disaster. And so this is part of our disaster response. And as we do our block, we do the hyperlocal block preparedness. And as I'm putting out the messaging and we're talking with other members of the block, it's, so remember, you know, this is among the disasters that we're experiencing right now, is this constant onslaught of noise, of emissions, of air pollution, of danger to the workers, danger to residents, danger to pets, considerable danger to children. And so I think the awareness, while it's important that it goes into, you know, we've been working with the Oregon Landscape Contractors Association for 2 years now. And they are by and large saying, well, yeah, it's a good idea. You know, we support it, but we don't think the technology is there yet on electric to be able to do the work necessary for some of our heavy jobs. And so we have a kind of ongoing conversation with them, and they have invited themselves to the table for the working group that is going to happen sooner or later. And so one of the things that I think is critical is getting information about the viability of using electric powered equipment. And it's that there may be a few jobs that are necessary for stronger power, but the uptick in surge capacity and storage capacity of lithium-ion batteries has increased tremendously over the years, thanks to Tesla, among other people. And that we have now the ability to say, look, you know, this works just as well. And the other big thing is return on investment, because AGSA, bless their hearts, have done a lot of research. Jamie knows this, that there's been return on investment on, like, for example, a lawnmower, gas versus electric, is 10 to 1. So it costs 10 times as much to run an electric, to run a gas piece of equipment, roughly, than it does an electric piece of equipment. Some people are more purists. They go, no, we want all leaf blowers done because of the particulate matter. We want everything just by hand tools. And to my mind, that might be a bridge too far in terms of major landscaping companies or municipalities. But the more we can demonstrate through those projects, the pilot projects that we're trying to do in Portland, the more we can demonstrate to the larger community, like, this is better for the environment, it's better for your health, and it's cheaper. I think that's a messaging that goes along. But to your point, it's not, approaching the landscapers, one of our members, Brian, approached his landscapers and said, look, we're gonna have to get somebody new because, you know, we can't abide by this gas leaf blowers. And they said, oh, hold on, we've been thinking about this, we're switching. So they did switch. They switched over to electric because the customer required it, because Brian said, I will not have anybody using that equipment in my yard and in my neighborhood. And so there are companies like Quiet Clean Lawn Care does a good job with all electric, or a number that are doing all electric or handheld. So anyway, there's a long answer.
Yeah, I'd also like to chime in on that. You know, there is no one magic answer to this issue. There are, just like there are millions of people in the world, there are millions of routes to get to heaven. And so so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of what I've been spearheading, and hopefully that also answers a bit of the question of, like, what do I do with my neighbor, or what do I do around the landscaping company? Someone asked, by the way, about if there's a recommended electric leaf blower. You can check our website. I think we do have some information on that. And if we don't, we can also point you to AGSA, which does have information on that. And Jamie, you've got something, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to make a couple of comments. AGSA does have equipment that they have tested and certified in the field as being truly commercial grade. Really a resource. And the other thing, just to talk about the industry as a whole, we're developing a pretty rich educational program and professional certification program. Michael, I don't know if you were aware of that, but it should launch within the next couple months. And the idea is to bring a level of professionalism and education and training to the electric technology so that landscapers have a place to go to learn what they're going to need in terms of, you know, infrastructure, how to handle, store, maintain the equipment properly, and so forth.
Great. All right. So
question
go ahead,
from
Michael.
AGSA is American Green Zone Alliance.
Great. All right. So I'm just going to riff a little bit on some of the different kinds of things that I think are available to any person. You know, as they say, as Margaret Mead once said, never underestimate what the power of a small group can be to change something. In fact, it's the only thing that has. And Michael was brilliant in bringing a small group of us together around a table. We meet every 2 weeks. We have coffee. We have wonderful baked goods, which come usually from our comrade Nancy, who unfortunately her power is out. And so she doesn't have internet and she had to drop off the call. So there was that. I was hoping that she would get a chance to speak because she is particularly interested in, I think it was, okay, I see your hand there and I'll get to you in a second. Great. She is very instrumental around reaching out to neighborhood organizations and reaching out to neighbors. And we've done that a little bit through some written material, and she just has some ideas in that way. And she also reaches out to organizations and tries to get on their radar and has some great, has had some great effect via that. Let's see, Ellen and Friend, do you want to ask a question?
Yes, well, I want to say about talking to the landscapers and neighbors. Part of the problem is the year-round use of leaf blowers, and my suspicion is that this is a make-work job, and that the landscapers would like to be on a contract in which they show up every week or every 2 weeks or something like that year-round. And in a number of months, there's not a lot you can do or needs to be done in the yard in Portland. And you can imagine someone out in February raking or using a broom or something like that. It looks pretty silly because there really aren't any leaves there and there's not a lot of work to be done. But somehow what they've been able to do is to persuade people that this leaf blowing is a real thing and is really part of the general practice of maintaining a lawn. So part of, just it really is threatening their work to say no leaf blowers, because in a number of months you're not going to replace leaf blowing with raking. You're going to replace it with nothing, and that really is a problem with their business.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. All right, Michael, go ahead.
Excuse me. Yes, been listening, and it's so wonderful to hear that there's actually people that are on the same page as me. We absolutely love Portland. I have to say that if we'd have known when we bought this home and remodeled it, what was going on around in the neighborhood, I probably wouldn't have looked here in this neighborhood. It's gotten totally out of control, where everyone all around us all has a weekly service, and on different days. So it basically is 6 days a week, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day, and sometimes 2 or 3 leaf blowers at the same time. Okay, drives me just crazy. And being a military combat veteran, I'm kind of sensitive to that kind of stuff. And I have to say that one day I just kind of lost it and went outside and tried to get the attention of the people across the street that were running too at the same time with headphones on. And she called the police on me. And so I'm 75 years old, never had the police called on me in my entire life. And here I am dealing with the sheriff. And I didn't know what to do. I felt really frustrated. So people say, oh, you got to get together and this and that. And so that's why I'm really excited about this. So you've got my participation. One thing I'd like to touch on is the fact that, forget the last fellow's name there, Ellen and Sir.
And friend.
And friend, well, I love the term, it's a make work job. And that is exactly the point. So I've noticed it's all about the money and the time. The larger the machine, the quicker they get done with a job, they get to move on to another one and collect their fee. I mean, if you did the numbers on the hours put in, opposed to what you actually got, you'd find you're paying them quite a bit of money per hour. I've seen them blow leaves in a 40-mile wind here, where they just come right back in your face, and we just couldn't believe that they would do that. I've seen them blow in a driving rain. About the only thing where they don't blow is if it's snowing. So we just love the snow. It quiets down. It's so peaceful. And there's no leaf blowers. So it's such a good point to actually not only just let your landscaper know that you're not okay with this. You're going to have to do it. And you don't have to run these things full throttle. The guy next door, I call him, he's what I call trigger happy. He's on and off at 10 times a second. And it drives me super crazy when it's like the machine's stuttering, it can't really quite get started. It drives me crazy. So I've seen people actually run them at low speeds and at low, about half throttle, and they're not that bad, and it all depends on the situation. So that's an option. If they could just back off it a little bit. Another thing that I'm totally concerned about is I'm a wildlife lover. We have owls. We have these wonderful cedar trees in back of us. The owls live in there. And what do you think? What do you imagine it does to them? The wildlife, the birds. We had a couple of baby mourning doves born here a few days ago. It was really something to see. What happens when you come through the yard with this 155-mile-an-hour wind to the wildlife?
So, Michael,
Yes.
thank you. Beautiful points.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, it's you're saying what everybody we are all on board with all you're talking about, and it's good to hear someone actually say what is pissing them off. And
sorry.
a call or a thought on the final note you made about birds is do reach out to the Audubon Society and ask them to join us, and we are already communicating with them.
Okay.
And that's true for everybody across the country. Anyone who's on here from anywhere, your Audubon Society is a good ally in this. So I am going to take a moment. I wanted to keep this to an hour. So I am going to take a moment as host to just speak a little bit about actions that I've taken that I think anyone can take, and just talk a little bit about our effort here in Portland and some of the effects that, not effects, but some of the actions that are possible. One is Nextdoor. Nextdoor.com is a local, it's basically Facebook organized locally. And it can be very contentious. It can have, people can be in your face just like on social media anywhere, but they also are your neighbors. Right, when I started using Nextdoor 6 years ago, there were 500 people in my neighborhood that were on it. Now there are 6,000. When I first started, there were 5,000 people in the 7 neighborhoods around me that I could also reach out to. Now there are 32,000. So when I post something, or when you post something, there's a potential that it will go out very far. A key thing when you are using Nextdoor is making a subject line. Imagine you're making a headline for the New York Times and you want people to read the article. You make a headline that both frames the problem but also gives people an action step. Leaf blowers are loud. We need to take steps to eliminate them. Or leaf blowers are loud. Talk to your landscaper about using a different option. So then you've got your content, whatever you're going to post in there. Maybe you post an article. There have been, okay, so another thing I just want to bring up real briefly is we are in a different moment right now. If you don't think that things have changed drastically in the last month, you're not living on the same planet I am. So this is a really magical moment for us. Anybody that has a little bit of extra time and attention and interest can really shape things in our future world. So Nextdoor is a good place to do this. What kind of future do we want? We've been pushing really hard. We've been pushing this ball or rock up the hill, trying to get rid of leaf blowers, right? And now all of a sudden, the ball is at the top of the hill, right? Like with climate change, you look out, the skies are clear, traffic is calmed. Things have just shifted for a moment, and we don't know how long the moment's going to last, but it's here right now. And I think people around me are noticing it and are taking advantage of it. There are kids in the streets. There are people biking around. There are people walking around. People getting more exercise than they're used to. So there's a big shift happening. And whether we take advantage of this shift and make some policy for the future, now's the moment to do it. We don't know how much time we have. It's almost like we're having a reverse virus in a way. Anyway, Nextdoor is a good platform. Don't get discouraged. You put something up there, the first comment is going to be, I hate you. Just stay on the issue. Stay with the issue. Stay with the issue. Do not, and if somebody writes something that, you can, around social justice or the people need the jobs or whatever, stay with the issue. The issue is, there's a couple things right now. Frontline workers who are working graveyard shifts. They don't want to hear this. They want to sleep. Everybody is at home. They want calm. We all want calm right now. there's enough stressors going on. These things are loud and they're obnoxious. So hammer on those issues. Then, I mean, you can go to the science, you can go to the particulate stuff that Jamie was talking about. There's a ton of different angles to it. Use your own thinking, use your own heart, use your own experience. You don't have to take from somebody else in this respect. Every one of us has our own story of waking up in the morning and hearing a lawnmower on one side and a leaf blower on the other side, you know, and then don't forget, all the kids are at home. They're trying to homeschool, you know, so there's so many different angles. I mean, you brought up, Michael, that you're a war veteran. I mean, how many veterans are in our neighborhoods? Millions, with PTSD, many of them. So, okay, so there's various things like that. Facebook, the things that I'm doing on Facebook are, we have a Facebook group, we have a Facebook page, but really the groups are where it's at. Find yourself the 1 million 1 million people against leaf blowers. If you need articles that are coming out, if you need thinking, if you need oomph, that is a good place to go. There's another one called Ban the Blowers. Then there are groups like Pollinator Friendly Backyards, where the woman, Leslie Inman, I think, I'm not positive I'm getting her name right, that is a group of 38,000 people who are interested in butterflies and insects. Now, what doesn't mix with butterflies and insects? Leaf blowers. So that's a place to both be posting, but also watching what people are saying. There's probably 10 different angles off of that. I've mostly gone after gone towards the people who are interested in like pollinator friendly yards, and the people who are obviously ban the blower people. And I'm hanging out in those Facebook groups. Then there's letters to the editor. The way that I actually got drawn to this effort was by seeing one of my colleagues' letters to my local paper talking about the issue. And that spurred me to jump in and get involved. So people still read their local paper. They might be reading it online right now, but they're reading it. And also right now people have more time. So they're willing to look at things more. They're willing to do actions, like look at all the people who are making masks, you know? Maybe we wouldn't need so many masks if we didn't have so many leaf blowers. So anyway, that's just a little riff off to the side. Let's see, so then we have the website. That website that we have for Quiet Clean Community, Quiet Clean PDX is available to any community. Perry's built one in Seattle, but you're welcome. And that is available to any community. We could take it, we could package it up. If you register a domain, we can ship it over to you. You can customize it for your community. We could have multiple versions of it floating around, but you can also just use it. We've developed it for intentionally, not just for our community. Like I saw Quiet Clean, our QC DC, you know, passed a ban on leaf blowers, yay. And that site is very much geared towards them. And I was hoping to have a site that would be much more like a template for different communities to use. So we've got that going on. Big thing, why you're all probably here today is email marketing. And I've been doing email marketing and teaching it for 12 years. And so there was not going to be an effort that I'm involved in that didn't include a website that collected email addresses and a Facebook page that collected email addresses. And so if you're doing the effort of this in your community, wherever you may live, keep in mind that someone who shows interest in what you're doing, try to build an email list of them, because it is the quickest way to get the word out to people. It's very effective. When I sent out a note about this meeting that we're on right now, it went out to about 350 people, and the open rate was almost 70%. So if you post something to Facebook, your chances of getting any kind of action, unless it's friends or people who are really close to you, is way lower. So that is something to consider as well. So we have an email list, we have a website, we have social media stuff going on next door. I'm trying to encourage all my colleagues to be posting the things that we learn. We have the special time that we're in right now. If you look, the New York Times just came out with an article talking about leaf blowers in the suburbs. That is content for you to be pushing out further to affect change in your neighborhood and in your city. Let me think if I forgot anything. You know, if you're into Instagram, if you're into Twitter, that kind of thing, people are watching those. Who knows, maybe we could get someone to do a anti-leaf blower TikTok. You know, it's very popular. Reaching out to other generations is really important too, and teaching them this information. Reaching out to the school board is really important. Reaching out to other organizations. Right now, other organizations, they may have slowed down, or they may be confused as which way is up. It's a great time to reach out to them. The executive directors of all the different organizations are more available now probably than ever, some of them. Joy asks, is there a free website to use? Not exactly, but if you want to reach out to me, again, our website is a possible template for other communities. So I've spoken. Michael, thank you for listening for a moment.
Just a shout out to Albert, not only for setting this up, but Albert has designed and created this this iron-on patch, which I have on some of my equipment. And if you'd like it, I have some, Albert has some. Let us know. Reach out to me, Michael at quietcleanpdx.org with your mailing address, and I'll put one in the mail to you. The other thing I wanted to mention, Albert mentioned neighborhoods. Neighborhood associations are huge on this one. So if you have any interest in reaching out to your neighborhood association, you will get a hearing, and you may get the support. If you get the support, get them on our supporter list on the email, on our website. And we're growing that all the time. And so there's that. And also, I just wanted to mention before we were done here that we've been in touch. One of my neighbors is on the school board. And so PPS has this on their screen now. And Portland Public Schools is working in the direction of dealing with not having these leaf blowers come adjacent to our schools and disrupting the learning process and polluting the air and causing all that problem in the schools. So reach out to Portland Public Schools if you're interested in that. Just be active in some small way. You know, there's a wonderful organization out there now called One Small Thing. And the idea is if each of us does one small thing, we can change the culture. We can change things for the better. So in whatever way you feel active in helping this process, I encourage you and invite you to please do something to reach out to spread the word on this one. That's all.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Well, I'm going to say it's 11, and I'll hang out for a while and answer questions. If people need to move, I know we've had a couple of people needing to go on to new things, but, and I've also been recording this. I hope that's okay with people. It's mostly just to show the small group of us that are working on this issue in Portland who couldn't be here today, what we talked about, and a chance for them to just be caught up to speed with how cool this is. And it's wonderful to be here with everybody, and we'll just hang out and do some Q&A and some rapping, and I'm happy to hang out for a while.